The medical chamber aboard the Imperial Zenith didn't smell like hospitals back on Earth. There was no bleach, no alcohol sting. Instead, the air carried something warm and metallic, like rain hitting heated stone. Soft blue light flowed from the ceiling in slow pulses, as if the room itself were breathing. I stood beside the bed, hands awkwardly clasped behind my back, trying very hard not to look nervous, which was difficult, considering the alien queen of the Velari Dominion lay unconscious 3 feet away. Queen Eltheria the Unbroken, conqueror of 12 systems, breaker of rebellions, ruler of an empire that could erase Earth from star charts if it ever felt bored enough. And I was just a human engineer who happened to fix her battle armor when no one else could. Her chest rose and fell slowly beneath layers of healing mesh, luminous threads knitting damaged tissue together. Even unconscious, she radiated authority. Sharp cheekbones, silver gold skin that caught the light like polished steel, long white hair braided with royal insignia. She looked less like a patient and more like a resting storm. "You may remain," said the nurse beside me. She wasn't human. Not quite. The Velari nurse, Seraph, stood tall and elegant, her posture perfectly straight. Her skin was a softer shade than the queen's, more pearl than steel, and faint bioluminescent patterns pulsed gently along her neck and wrists. Her eyes were large, dark, and observant, too observant. She had been watching me since I entered the room. "You are the one who repaired Her Majesty's armor," Seraph continued, her voice smooth and musical. "Without authorization, without rank." I swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." A pause. "In Velari space," she said calmly. "Such actions are punishable by execution." "Great. Fantastic start. But," she added, turning her gaze toward the Queen, "Her Majesty lives because of you." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Sarah studied me again, head tilting slightly. "You show no fear." That was a lie. I was terrified. My heart was doing laps around my ribcage. But humans had one evolutionary advantage over most species I'd met so far. We could fake confidence when cornered. "I've worked under worse bosses," I said lightly. Sarah blinked. Once. Then she smiled. "It was small, controlled, dangerous. Humans are strange," she said. "You joke when facing death." "Helps keep things light," I replied. Another pause. The healing mesh hummed softly. Somewhere beyond the walls, the warship's engines vibrated. A deep, distant reminder that this vessel was built for conquest, not comfort. Sarah folded her hands. "You remained at Her Majesty's side even after the danger passed." I shrugged. Someone had to make sure the armor didn't short the medical field. "Your tech's impressive, but it wasn't designed for human-style improvisation." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Not in anger. In interest." "You speak as an equal," she observed. "Bad habit," I said. "I've been told." Silence stretched again. I could feel it now. Something unspoken in the air. Not hostility. Not gratitude. Evaluation. Velari didn't just look at you. They measured you. Finally, Sarah gestured toward a small console. "You may sit. The Queen will remain unconscious for several cycles." I sat, carefully. The chair adjusted instantly to my weight and posture. Of course it did. Minutes passed. Maybe more. Time felt strange here, wrapped in humming energy and quiet power. I watched the Queen breathe. Sarah watched me watch her. "You care for her," the nurse said suddenly. I choked. "What?" "No, I mean, I don't even know her." "Yet you stayed," Sarah said. "Velari warriors did not." I frowned. "They were injured, exhausted. And you were not?" I hesitated, because the truth was, I was exhausted. I'd spent 12 straight hours inside a shattered exosuit, rerouting alien energy flows with human tools and bad ideas. I should have collapsed. But I didn't leave. I gave my word. I said quietly. I said I'd fix it. All of it. Saratha's glow patterns brightened, just a fraction. "In Velari tradition," she said slowly, "a vow given in the presence of royalty carries weight." I tried to lighten the mood. "Guess I should be more careful with what I say, huh?" She turned to me fully now. Indeed. The queen stirred then, a faint movement of fingers, a subtle shift in breathing. My attention snapped back to the bed immediately. Seraph noticed. Something in her expression changed. Human, she said softly, when Her Majesty awakens, she will question you. About the armor? About you? I forced a smile. Tell her I'm charming and harmless. Seraph stepped closer, close enough that I could see the fine detail of her skin, the gentle glow pulsing in rhythm with her breath. In my culture, she said, such devotion is not harmless. I laughed nervously. Relax. I'm just doing my job. She studied me for a long moment. Then I said it. The words slipped out without thought, without strategy, pure human reflex in an awkward moment. Yes, dear. I meant it like a joke, a throwaway phrase, something my grandfather used to say to my grandmother whenever she gave him that look. The effect was immediate. Seraph froze. The room seemed to still. The gentle hum of the medical field dropped an octave. The light shifted, barely perceptible but unmistakable. Slowly, the nurse straightened. Her eyes widened. Then she smiled again. Not small this time. Not controlled. Radiant. You have acknowledged, she said, voice suddenly formal, resonant. Before witnesses. Before the queen. My stomach dropped. Acknowledge what? I asked. Sarah placed her hand over her chest in a gesture I hadn't seen before. Mating acceptance, she said. I stared. Once. Twice. Then I laughed. Oh, no. No, you misunderstood. That's just a human expression. It doesn't mean... She stepped closer. You called me dear, she said gently. You affirmed obedience and emotional bond. My mouth went dry. No, I was joking. Sarah turned toward the bed just as the queen's eyes opened. Silver gold irises focused instantly. Sharp, alert, a ruler waking, not a patient. Queen Eltheria looked at me, then at Seraph, then back at me. Seraph bowed deeply. Your Majesty, the nurse announced, voice ringing with unmistakable pride. The human has accepted me as mate. The silence that followed was not empty. It was catastrophic. And I realized, far too late, that in this empire, intent didn't matter. Only words did. The first thing Queen Eltheria did after waking was not scream. She didn't reach for a weapon. She didn't summon guards. She didn't even move. She simply looked at me. And I understood, deep in my bones, why entire civilizations surrendered the moment her fleets appeared in their skies. Her eyes were not angry. They were precise. Cold silver irises locked onto my face, measuring, dissecting, stripping away every layer of pretense I'd ever worn. I felt like a machine laid bare on a workbench, every flaw exposed under unforgiving light. You, she said, one word, heavy enough to bend gravity. I swallowed. Your Majesty. Her gaze flicked to Seraph, who still stood bowed, posture flawless, glow patterns shining with unmistakable pride. Repeat, the queen commanded. Seraph straightened and spoke clearly, formally, loudly enough for the chamber to record every syllable. The human acknowledged me as mate, in the presence of royalty, with verbal affirmation. Eltheria's fingers tightened against the bed, not in shock, in calculation. The queen hummed. A human. Her gaze returned to me. Explain. Every instinct screamed, tell the truth. Every survival reflex screamed, choose your words carefully. It was a misunderstanding, I said. A human idiom. Informal. No binding intent. The queen tilted her head slightly. Intent, she repeated, is irrelevant. My stomach sank. She raised one hand. The air shimmered as a translucent holographic construct formed above her palm, ancient symbols interlocking like living geometry. Velari law, she said calmly, was forged to prevent chaos. Spoken bonds exist because they cannot be falsified by emotion. Seraph nodded solemnly. When a Velari says, I accept, the queen continued, the universe adjusts accordingly. I tried to keep my voice steady. With respect, Your Majesty, humans don't work that way. Eltheria smiled. Not kindly. Then you should not speak Velari words. A beat. Wait, I said. I didn't speak Velari. Her smile widened just enough to be unsettling. You spoke meaning. The hologram shifted, displaying recorded audio. My voice crystal clear. Yes, dear. My own words echoed back at me like a verdict. Translated, the Queen said, buy our systems into a culturally equivalent declaration. I opened my mouth, closed it. There was no loophole there. Silence settled again, thick and heavy. Finally, Eltheria turned her attention fully to Seraph. Nurse. Yes, Your Majesty. You are aware, the Queen said, that claiming a mate without imperial sanction carries consequences. Seraph lowered her head. I am prepared to accept them. Prepared. That word hit me harder than any threat. Hold on, I said quickly. If anyone's at fault, it's me. She didn't trick me. I made a dumb joke. The Queen's eyes flicked back to me. You defend her. Because this is insane, I snapped before I could stop myself. You can't bind two people over a phrase that means nothing where I come from. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Not voices. Systems activating. Sensors. Recorders. Legal constructs spinning into motion. The Queen studied me with renewed interest. Where you come from, she said softly, words are cheap. I felt heat rise in my chest. No, words are flexible. Eltheria laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was fascinated. How curious, she mused. An entire species built on ambiguity. She gestured again, and the hologram changed, showing Velari history. Wars sparked by broken oaths. Civilizations erased because a ruler reneged on a vow. In our empire, she said, clarity is survival. I took a breath. Slower this time. Then let me be clear, I said. I am not claiming anyone. I don't consent. The room went utterly still. Even Seraph looked up, surprise flashing across her features. The Queen's expression hardened. Not in anger, but in something far worse. Disappointment. Consent, Eltheria repeated. You assume you have that option. My heart pounded. Human, she said, voice carrying the weight of centuries. You stand within an empire where your species has no legal standing. That landed like a hammer. You live, she continued, because I permitted it. You speak because I allow it. And yet you challenge tradition. I clench my fists. Because tradition doesn't give you the right to decide someone's life over a mistranslation. For the first time since waking, the Queen leaned forward. Interesting. You repair my armor, she said. You defied orders. You entered a royal combat frame mid-battle and saved my life. Yes, I said, because it was the right thing to do. Her gaze sharpened. You did not negotiate payment. No, you did not request protection. No, you did not flee afterward. No. She studied me for a long, heavy moment. Then she said, you are dangerous. I almost laughed. I don't even have a weapon. You have conviction, she replied. That is far more destabilizing. She turned to Seraph again. Nurse. Seraph straightened instantly. The claim stands, the Queen said, but it will not be enforced yet. Hope flared in my chest. Yet, I asked. Eltheria's eyes met mine. In Velari law, she said, a claimed mate may contest a bond. I exhaled. Good. Then I contest it. She raised a finger. Through trial. The word echoed like thunder. Trial? I repeated. Yes, she said calmly. You will prove your incompatibility. Seraph inhaled sharply. What kind of trial? I asked. The Queen smiled again. This time, predatory. Cultural integration, she said. If you cannot function as Velari, if your values truly conflict, then the bond dissolves. And if I fail? Eltheria leaned back against the bed, regal even while wounded. Then, she said, the universe is already chosen. My pulse roared in my ears. This is madness. She inclined her head slightly. Welcome to civilization. A door hissed open at the far end of the chamber. Armored guards stepped inside, tall, gleaming, weapons inactive but very visible. "Escort the human," the Queen ordered, "to the guest wing." Guards moved toward me. I took one last look at Seraph. She wasn't smiling anymore. She looked conflicted. As they led me away, the Queen's voice followed, calm and absolute. "Rest human. Learn our ways." A pause. "You will need every advantage." The door sealed behind me with a final, resonant thud. And as the corridor lights ignited one by one, I finally understood the truth. I hadn't just offended an empire. I had been challenged by it. They didn't take me to a courtroom. That should have been my first warning. The corridor ended in a vast open chamber, carved directly into the hull of the warship. No walls, just transparent energy barriers, revealing open space beyond. Stars burned in silent judgment, close enough to feel personal. "This," the escort announced, "is the Hall of Concordance." I swallowed. "Looks more like an execution platform." He didn't deny it. The floor was etched with concentric rings of alien script, each one pulsing faintly as I stepped forward. The air itself seemed heavier here, thick with authority. Every word spoken in this chamber carried legal weight. Every silence was recorded. Queen Eltheria awaited me at the center. She no longer wore healing mesh. She stood in full imperial regalia. Obsidian and gold armor fitted perfectly to her frame, a living symbol of conquest and order. Her presence pressed down on me like gravity, turned up a notch. Sarah stood at her right, not as a nurse, as a claimant. Her posture was formal, but her eyes betrayed something else now, uncertainty, doubt, maybe even guilt. "Uman," the Queen said, her voice echoing across the chamber without amplification. "You will now undergo cultural concordance trial." I took a breath. "And if I refuse?" Eltheria didn't blink. "Then the bond finalizes by default." "Of course it does." "Very well," I said. "Explain the rules." A ripple of interest moved through the spectators. The Queen gestured, and the rings beneath us ignited one by one. "There are 3 measures," she said. "Loyalty, hierarchy, truth." My jaw tightened. None of those sounded good for my species. "You will answer as you are," she continued, "not as you wish to appear. Deception will be unpleasant." The air shimmered, and suddenly I felt it, something brushing against my thoughts. Not invasive, not painful, but present, a truth field. "First measure," Eltheria intoned. "Loyalty." A holographic scene formed between us. A Velari warship under attack, alarms screaming, systems failing. "In this scenario," the Queen said, "your mate stands accused of treason. Evidence is strong. The Empire demands judgment." Seraph inhaled sharply. "What do you do?" the Queen asked. The truth field pulsed. I didn't answer immediately, because humans don't survive by answering quickly. "I investigate," I said. "Evidence can be wrong." The chamber murmured. "Assume the evidence is verified," the Queen pressed. I met her gaze. "Then I stand with her anyway." Gasps. Seraph turned toward me, eyes wide. "Explain," Eltheria demanded. "Because loyalty isn't obedience," I said steadily. "It's choosing someone even when it costs you. If I believed she was guilty, I'd face that with her, not hand her over to make my own life easier." The truth field flared, brilliant, undeniable. Truth confirmed. The Queen's brow furrowed. "Second measure," she said after a moment. "Hierarchy." The scene shifted. I saw myself, older, scarred, standing beside Seraph as she wore the insignia of a high-ranking Velari official. "You are ordered," the Queen said, "to silence her dissent. She challenges Imperial command." The implication was clear. I felt my chest tighten. "I refuse," I said. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. "You would defy your mate superior?" Eltheria asked. "I would defy anyone," I replied, "who asked me to destroy someone I care about just to preserve rank." The truth field burned hotter. Truth confirmed. Sarah's glow patterns flickered wildly now. The Queen stared at me, something dangerously close to disbelief crossing her face. "Final measure," she said slowly. "Truth." The hall darkened. The stars beyond seemed closer. Human, Eltheria said. Did you intend to claim Sereth as mate when you spoke the words, "Yes, dear"? Every eye in the chamber fixed on me. The truth field tightened. No, I said plainly. I did not. The field pulsed. Truth confirmed. A collective exhale swept the chamber. Sereth's shoulders sagged. Then the queen asked a question that froze my blood. Would you, she said, voice low and precise, choose her now? The truth field surged. I looked at Sereth, really looked, at the pride she carried, at the way she followed tradition, even when it trapped her, at the quiet courage it took to stand here, knowing the bond might shatter her standing forever. I won't be forced, I said carefully, and I won't lie. The truth field shimmered. If I chose, I continued, it would be because she chose me first as a person, not as a rule, not as a claim, not as a translation error. The field exploded in light. Absolute truth. Silence fell. Not hostile. Reverent. Queen Eltheria straightened. Slowly, deliberately, she inclined her head. The trial is complete, she declared. A pause. The bond, she said, eyes flicking to Sereth, then back to me, is suspended. The chamber erupted, voices overlapping, nobles arguing, systems recalculating ancient law in real time. Sereth turned to me, stunned. You broke it, she whispered. I shook my head. No, I respected it. The queen raised her hand, silencing the hall. Humanity, she said, voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, has a flaw. She looked directly at me. They believe choice matters more than law. Her lips curved into a slow, dangerous smile. And that, she continued, is why they terrify empires. The stars beyond the hall seemed brighter now, and I realized something chilling. I hadn't just survived the trial. I had changed it. The silence after the verdict didn't break. It waited. Thousands of Velari nobles stood frozen in the hall of concordance, their bioluminescent patterns dim to near dark, as if the empire itself was holding its breath. The truth field faded, leaving behind a faint shimmer, like heat after lightning. Queen Eltheria rose. Not abruptly, not dramatically. She rose the way continents rise, slow, inevitable, reshaping everything around them. Attend, she said. The word carried authority older than stars. Every sound died instantly. You have witnessed, the queen continued, pacing the inner ring, a foreign mind operate within Velari law and survive. Her gaze swept the chamber, then settled on me. Not by obedience, she said, not by deception. She stopped an arm's length away, but by choice. A ripple moved through the nobles. Unease, curiosity, fear. In our history, Eltheria said, order was preserved by binding words, by removing ambiguity. She lifted her chin slightly. Today, ambiguity challenged us and did not collapse our law. Her eyes narrowed. It strengthened it. Sarah stood beside me now, no longer claimant, no longer nurse, just herself. Her glow patterns were subdued, but steady. When she looked at me, there was no pride, no claim, only respect. Human, the queen said, step forward. I did. Each step echoed like a hammer striking an anvil. You came to us as an engineer, Eltheria said. You repaired what we could not. You spoke what you did not understand. And when bound by accident, you refused power you did not choose. She circled me slowly. Velari doctrine teaches that control prevents chaos. She stopped. You prove that consent can do the same. The word sent a visible shock through the hall. Consent. Foreign. Dangerous. Human. Therefore, the queen announced, I will issue a decree. Holographic sigils ignited above her. Imperial authority. Absolute and irreversible. Effective immediately, all interspecies bonds within Velari space will require affirmed intent from all parties. Gasps. Open dissent. Shocked disbelief. Eltheria didn't flinch. Translation systems, she continued, will no longer impose cultural equivalence without confirmation. The sigils locked. Words, she said, will mean what the speaker chooses them to mean. The empire shifted. I felt it, not metaphorically, but physically. Systems recalibrating. Laws rewriting themselves in light-speed cascades. A civilization bending instead of breaking. Altheria turned back to me. "And you," she said, voice lowering, becoming almost personal, "you will not leave this chamber as you entered it." I braced myself. "You are offered a role," she said. "Liaison, architect, witness." Saratha's breath caught. "A bridge," the queen said, "between Velari's certainty and human choice." I met her gaze. "And if I refuse?" For the first time, the queen smiled without menace. "Then you will leave," she said, "and my empire will remember the human who said no and lived." That was the moment I understood. This wasn't about Sarath, or the bond, or a joke gone wrong. This was about something far bigger. I looked at Sarath. She inclined her head, not in claim, not in submission, in invitation. "I accept," I said, not because law demanded it, not because power tempted me, but because this time I meant it. The sigils above the queen flared gold. So recorded, Altheria declared, by intent, by will. She raised her voice to the empire. "Let it be known. Humanity has entered Velari history, not as subjects, but as equals." The hall erupted, not in outrage, but in something far more dangerous. Hope. As the stars beyond the chamber burned a little brighter, I realized a truth that would echo across galaxies. Humans didn't conquer empires with weapons. We did it by teaching them that choice was stronger than fear. And it all started with a joke.